All right, we're here with the man of the hour, the guy that's hanging it up. I know the feeling you're going through, Scott.
You've done this before, right?
I've done that before, and I haven't done it real well. I haven't done it real well, but I'm still trying at that a little bit. You came here to Channel 9 in '96, I believe.
Yes.
A few other stops before that, right?
Yeah, it all started when I was 16 years old. I worked at a radio station in Indianapolis when I was in high school. I'd go to football practice, and then my mom would bring me some dinner so I could go to my radio show. Had thrills there doing the broadcast, got to cover the Indianapolis 500. Al Unser Sr. was my color commentator.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
How cool was that, right? As a 16-year-old up in the tower in Indianapolis. And I didn't stop. I've been broadcasting ever since, 46 years. My first job out of college in television was in Duluth, Minnesota. Covered a lot of triple header hockey games and arenas with no heat. That was a lot of fun. And then I moved to Topeka, Kansas, where I had a thrill there. I got to cover Danny Manning and the Miracles all the way to the national title game. And the same day I covered the Royals opener. That night, it was in Kansas City at Kemper Arena, I covered the national title game between Kansas and Oklahoma. So that was quite a thrill early in my career. And then I got a job working out in Reno, Nevada, where I was the sports director out there for 4 years, and that was a blast. I was a big boxing fan as a kid. So I got to box out there. I had some great friends, Greg Haugen, 3-time world champ. I sparred with him on a few occasions, and other boxers, when they would come into town, they would set up a ring in the middle of the casino, and we would box.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they'd put our name up on the front of the casino, and fans would come and watch, and I thought that was fun. I got bloody noses, I got black eyes from my headgear.
Knocked out?
Well, I got knocked down.
Knocked down,
yes,
okay.
Not knocked out. Canvas one time was pretty hard when my head hit, so that might have made me a little goofy.
Okay.
Not the first time I've been knocked goofy.
And then did you come to Cedar Rapids after that?
Yeah, from Reno I came to Cedar Rapids to KGAN, where I was competing against you, and I thought, I cannot compete with this guy. So I got a job in Milwaukee, worked in Milwaukee, and that was a lot of fun. Covered the Packers, Brett Favre and the Packers. Was in their locker room on a daily basis. I was responsible for a player segment on the Holmgren show, so I'd go to their homes and different things, and really had a fun time doing that.
Well, we both know the Green Bay thing because I worked there my first 10 years in the business and everything. But you got here in '96 and everything. We had Athlete of the Week already going, but you kind of you gave it your own twist. Where did that come from? Where did the challenges come from?
Well, the challenges actually started in Reno. People would call up, and that's actually how I started boxing. A pro boxer called me up and challenged me to a boxing match.
Yeah.
So I started doing those challenges, and when I came here, I thought that might make an interesting twist to the Athlete of the Week. And it kind of eases, you know, it's tough when you're a high school athlete, and I was interviewed as a high school athlete. You're all nervous, you know, in front of the camera. Kind of eases things for the athlete, and we kind of have some fun. And I remember my first one, you probably remember it, Trent Heenick at Prairie High School, who was a great wrestler for Prairie, heavyweight, huge guy. So we went like we were going to wrestle, and then I took off running out of the wrestling room and then down 380 back to the station, and he chased me.
I thought it was one of the classic challenges of all time.
That was like
I didn't realize that was the first one.
That was like the very first year, I know that.
Okay, the very first year.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. But that seemed to take off. It seemed to be a trademark for you.
It was fun. We enjoyed it. Obviously, just tremendous athletes, and it became a lot more difficult to make it even look normal when you're old, and 60 years old, and you're out there challenging the athletes. But we had a lot of fun over the years, and it just became a special thing that we did. At times I felt maybe that was taking away from the athlete, and I never wanted to do that. So there were times I thought maybe this isn't a good idea, but we'd already started and it was hard to stop.
You know, one thing I liked, you had what you called honorary athletes, where you took physically challenged, mentally challenged young people and let them be part of the program too.
Yeah, that was very important because there's a lot of those challenged athletes out there that have so much courage and offer so much inspiration over the years that was a lot of fun to feature them and show what they were all about, and everybody can learn from that.
You and I were talking, we made a lot of trips covering the Hawkeyes, covering the Cyclones, et cetera, et cetera. One of the trips that we both remember is the one in '02 when Iowa went to the Orange Bowl. And pick up that story. Brad Banks was from that area.
Yeah, he was from Belglade, Florida, and we went to visit him in his hometown. And Belglade's famous for their high school football. And they have these rabbits that come out of the fields.
Sugarcane.
Yeah, sugarcane fields. They light them on fire, and they try to catch the rabbits, and they claim that's why they're such good athletes. But the great story about it, we went to his barber shop and got great stories, his parents' home. And then we went to the McDonald's and asked people if they knew Brad, and we were just in the drive-up window, and this lady said, "Yes, my daughter used to date Brad, and what a fool she was for breaking up with him. Look at him now."
That's a true story. I remember that. That was so funny. That was so funny. She was a little upset that her daughter wasn't going with him. You know, another story I remember, it was a Saturday night. I think it was in '04. You were doing the sports. My phone rang at home right after the 6 o'clock sports. Because Zach Johnson was doing very well at the Bell South Classic. Was he in first place or second place?
I believe he was like tied for the lead or one shot back going into the final.
And you say, "John, I think we should go down there." And I said, "Well, Scott, you're not going to get a flight out of Cedar Rapids on Saturday night to get to Atlanta." And you said, "No, I'm going to drive." And you did.
Yeah, we called, and the PR people said, "If you're going to drive this far, we'll give you a credential."
Yeah.
And I told him how special it would be for this city if Zach would win. So our intern was out having dinner. He came back and I said, "Grab your coat, we're going to Atlanta." We drove through the night, got there about the time that he teed off the next day, followed him around. He wins the Bell South Classic.
Yes.
The Golf Channel says, "Well, you go ahead and do the interview. You drove this far." So we did an interview right on the green. Back then there was no satellite trucks. So we had to drive to CNN downtown and feed it back. And we had the exclusive of Zach when he won, and all the supporters and backers were there also for Zach at the time we did that story. And then we got in the car and drove back home.
Yeah. Of course, that qualified him for the Masters, and then he went down to the Masters many years, won at one time. But you and I also went down and covered the Masters. I thought that was a lot of fun going down there for that.
What's really cool about the Masters, and I know a lot of people have been to Augusta, is the town of Augusta just looks like a normal town.
Yeah.
And then you go down Magnolia Lane, and it's like a fairy tale. It's the most beautiful place you've ever seen.
Something else. Well, what are some of the other sports stories you remember? Because we've had a lot of great athletes go through this Eastern Iowa and everything, both at a high school and the University of Iowa and Northern Iowa. So it's been a great market, I think, to be a sportscaster.
Yeah, well, two of the greatest stories, I think, in the history of sports are from right here in Cedar Rapids. One is Zach Johnson, who was not the best golfer on his high school team. He lives here in town now. We've featured his daughter, by the way, who was an athlete of the week. Not the best player on his high school team, like the fifth best on his college team when he started. He believed in himself.
Yeah.
A bunch of backers and Larry Gladson at Elmcrest went to Zach's dad and said, "We want to back Zach and pay money until he makes it," going on the Hooters tour and all the other tours that they had at the time. He played in the Greater Cedar Rapids Open. And at first, Zach's dad said, "No, I don't think this is a good idea." They talked him into it. So they raised some money, and he just kept battling. And then he won a tour, mini tour event, and then that's how he got in the Bell South Classic, won that, and then he wins the Masters and the British Open, the two biggest golf tournaments in the world.
I remember those days.
And this whole thing almost didn't get started at all because his dad didn't believe that was a good idea. So just phenomenal. And then the other story, of course, is Kurt Warner, who at UNI wanted to leave, didn't get to play, sat behind Jay Johnson.
It would never happen nowadays.
Yeah.
He wouldn't sit on the bench for 4 years.
Exactly.
But he did up
with
there.
NIL, yeah. For 4 years he sat on the bench. He wanted to leave and transfer for his fifth year, and his dad said, no, stay there, stay there. He plays his fifth year, has a great year. Yeah. But even then, he goes up to Green Bay and he's afraid to go in the game, right? They tell him, "You're in." He's like, "Well, I'm not ready." So he comes back and he's bagging groceries at Hy-Vee. Yeah. And then that's where the phrase Hy-Vee to MVP comes from. And I remember when he played his first game, we went down there and covered it. And we went to every game, every Sunday that year, every home game. We drove down to St. Louis.
About a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, back and forth. We'd go live there, whatever. We did the cast every Sunday at the game. And then we beat him to the Super Bowl. After the championship game, they went to the Super Bowl, and I knew the only way we were going to get an interview with him is if we beat him there. Mm-hmm. So we left, got there the night before he flew in, and he got off the bus and walked in the hotel, and we got an exclusive 1-hour interview because we would have
1
never,
hour?
Yeah, 1 hour interview. We would have never gotten anything. We used it all week long, obviously, and did stories with his parents. But after that, in the media, there's thousands and thousands, so you're not getting an interview after that. So that was a special time. Another one was Tim DeWitt, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was not as crazy as his rookie year, right? So we go down there, and he passes me off as his brother and gets me into the Atlanta Falcons team party, and then he predicts he's going to return a kickoff for a touchdown, and does it. Yeah. One of the greatest athletes I've ever covered, John, is Tim DeWitt.
I think we agree on that. He was by far and away the best Iowa high school football player ever covered. And then he took it on to Iowa and the NFL.
Yeah, you know, his size, he's my size, and
Yeah.
the fact that he was able to do what he could do, and there were Division III coaches that thought that they could get Tim Dwight because of his size. Boy, were they wrong, because his heart was much bigger than anything else and
Yeah.
everybody else's, and just a tremendous, tremendous athlete.
Of course, it hasn't been all sports, believe it or not. You're in sports at TV9, but we did other things, and the flood was one thing in '08. The derecho, you had a role in that too.
Yeah, the derecho, we did not have. Well, the derecho was a crazy time, and some of the stories at the Elmcrest or the Cedar Rapids Country Club just demolished. So we did a lot of those stories, and one of the craziest stories actually was during COVID. We didn't have sports during COVID for I don't know how long, almost a year it seemed like, and I wasn't allowed even in the station. I edited from home, but some amazing stories there. Neil Bennett from Iowa City, I think he 152 days.
Wow.
He battled
COVID for 152 days.
Yeah, and at one point he actually, they thought they lost him, and they brought him back to life. And the spirit that he battled and the will to live, those kind of stories really struck me during that time. And of course, I lost a lot of good friends. We all did during that time. Lost high school teammates. Wyatt Schultz, who was a regular on Iowa
wrestling.
Live, the wrestling guru in the state of Iowa, passed away from COVID. So it was a very difficult time, a depressing time, I would say, not being able to come into the station. It was basically just me and my wife. She helped me out at times. Actually held the mic. We had a long mic.
Yeah.
I remember we held that inside a nursing home and got a woman that had COVID.
Oh.
It's like a 20-foot mic we put through the window, and she held that while I did the interview. Just crazy times, things you would never think would ever happen in your lifetime.
So weird to go to Kinnick Stadium, dead quiet, go to Carver Hawkeye Arena, nobody in there, but they played the
Yeah,
games.
John, I hope we never have to go through that again.
Oh,
It was a very,
you and me
very
both.
difficult time.
You and me both. One of the things that I know you enjoyed doing was Ragbri.
Ragbri was a lot of fun. The last time I did Ragbri was a couple of years ago. Maybe it wasn't as much fun. It was
Yeah, it was real hot.
I remember going through two-a-days in high school in Indianapolis and how hot that was.
Yeah.
This was just as hot, if not hotter. I remember at one point going through Iowa City, I had to stop, and I drank 6 Gatorades in a row. It was that
Oh, I believe it.
incredibly hot. But you know, it's a real challenge, not just to do Ragbri, but to do Ragbri and do several stories a day and stopping along the way and then to edit those. It's not easy to do. It's probably the hardest thing I've done in this business because you know, you're working physically and then mentally you have to do that. It's not just having fun. I didn't even have a bike. I started doing it when you decided you were going to do some other rides and not do Ragbri. So I bought a bike from a guy in the Rockwell parking lot.
Okay.
So I started, you know, without any training whatsoever. So that was an experience, but a lot of fun along Ragbri.
You meet some interesting people. You get
Yes.
a chance to see the state and everything. And I was thinking of you that day you rode into Iowa City because I think I was in my air-conditioned
That was
house.
unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a tough day.
Unbelievable. I hope to do Ragbri several times again. That was a lot of fun.
You love your bicycles.
I do, yes.
You love your bicycle.
I have-
People don't know this guy rode his bicycle to work and home every day. And I'm talking at 11:30 at night, howling winds, snow. This guy was riding. So my hat's off to you on that. And I have a feeling that there's maybe some more bicycle experiences in your future.
I hope so. I'm planning on doing a couple of rides across the United States, the southern
Good
route,
man.
yeah, and then the Great Divide from Canada to Mexico. So I'm hoping to do that in the future and looking forward
Have
to
you
it.
talked to Brenda about that yet?
She'll just have to deal with it. I got a little tent, weighs 1 pound. I just crawl right in that sucker, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to miss a lot of things about this job. One thing I will not miss is bullfighting. I had a chance to do some bullfighting where I tried the bull riding, and it worked out all right. And then they talked me into doing a story on a bullfighter. And bullfighting, that's where they let the bull out, and he comes right at you. And I was told, and I was full clown makeup, I was told, throw your hat. The name of the bull is Dr. Kevorkian. And throw your hat, and he'll look at the hat, and then you run by him and stiff arm him.
Yeah.
Just like you did in football. I thought, oh, I can do that. I threw the hat, he didn't look at it. So, and another thing I learned, you cannot outrun a bull, especially when you're in mud this deep, dirt this deep.
Sand and dirt,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I turned around, he got me by the horns, threw me up in the air, and then ran me over, broke my ribs. I don't think I'll be doing that in
Okay.
retirement at all. But
Sounds
but I'm crick jumping. I might try that. I had a chance to do crick jumping at UNI. One of their great pole vaulters there had a deal where if you could make it across the creek, you could be on the pole vault team.
I remember this shot.
You run and you take the pole and you throw it in, and then you go over to the other side, and it was a long way down if you didn't make it. First time I didn't make it. Came back, landed on the rocks. Second time I was bound and determined, and I made it. About a week after I did that, one of the assistant coaches, you and I, did it, and he punctured his lung, and they had to rush him to the hospital. So probably some things that maybe weren't this smart.
You got in the water a few times over the years.
Yeah.
I think a couple of our microphones got in the water.
One time we dumped one in the microphone in an Athlete of the Week challenge. I made sure I didn't make that mistake again. The engineers weren't happy about that.
Well, I hope people can tell how much you enjoyed your job.
It's been a blast. 46 years, it's been a blast. You know how much fun it is. You're still doing it.
Well,
so.
and to work together over many of those years was fun.
You've been such an inspiration for me, John, that it's been amazing. To be able to work with you and learn and follow you has just been tremendous for me. And we're still working together.
We're still working together.
And that says a lot, and it's been a blast.
Best of luck, man.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it, John.
You bet.
Yeah.